Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike. And before you get too sucked into this awesome interview, do us both a favor like, subscribe, and share this amazing piece of entertainment because I am here with the one, the only, Tom Fleming.
Yay!
Say hello, Tom.
Hello, Tom. Yeah.
How are things going, my good man?
Well, everything is going really well. Keeping busy, and just enjoying life.
Awesome. Well, I've got a very pressing question to ask you.
All right.
What is your favorite dad joke?
My favorite dad joke. That's got to be. Well, I don't know. How much time do you have? It's got to be Rudolph. Yeah. Okay. It's about this. You want me to tell the whole thing?
Go for it.
All right. So in Russia, there was a great weatherman named Rudolph. Now, Rudolph was good communist, good red Russian communist, member of party, but also best weatherman ever. Put finger in air, boom, it will rain, boom, it will snow, boom, it will wind, sun, whatever. He's always right. So one day he's out walking with wife Olga, and sun shining, birds, no cloud in. He put finger in air, and oh, Olga, we must go home soon. Cats, dogs fall from sky. So she said, no, Rudolph, this time you are wrong. He said, I am never wrong. Grabs her arm, and he says, we must get home. So she trusts him, she follows him, and sure enough, clouds arrive as they are going in their house. Cats, dogs, all water. Noah's Ark could float on this flood. Well, she turned to her husband. She said, you are right again. You are right again. You are always right. How do you do it? And he said, Rudolph the Red knows rain, dear.
Oh, that's tremendous. That's fantastic.
Well, it's just about Christmas right now, so
Yeah,
good timing on
it
that.
is.
Huh?
Yeah, nailed it. Do you have a favorite underutilized word in the English lexicon?
Underutilized word. Underutilized. Well, I think that it's got to be contemplation, and a corollary of that would be, to be out of one's mind. When I was been a teacher, directing musicals, directing choirs, bands, I mean, all sorts of things. Biggest thing that I would tell my students, and it took a while for them to really realize that I was absolutely serious when I said, is that you got to be out of your minds. Get out of your minds. Because so often, especially stage fright, whatever it might be, is something that prevents kids from performing to their full potential. I mean, some kids would just be paralyzed with fear. But at the very least, it's that attention, usually thoughts on the inside of their mind, the spinning mind, always telling them you don't look good enough, you don't sound good enough, and what if somebody sees, etc. So I said, get out of your minds, be here. And so in contemplation is the result. It's what we can do when we're out of our minds. It's not thinking. Thinking is part of the spinning mind process. Usually, I mean, there is deliberate thinking, there's mathematical, computations to figure out where am I on the map, that sort of thing, and all sorts of things. Thinking is necessary. Thinking is, but contemplation is a whole other level. And I think it's probably one of the most misused, contemplation comes from stillness, comes from a still mind. It comes from someone who has deliberately in some form or other, whether by accident or on purpose, mastered the ability to, at least for certain periods of time, is to still one's mind. And from that place, you can contemplate something. You don't think about it, you contemplate it. You just put your attention on it, notice details, and let it, it's weird to say this, but let it reveal itself to you. And you can contemplate a problem in that way. You can contemplate a thing, etc. So that's the word, contemplation. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Getting out of one's own way by helping thyself, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
What would you say your biggest everyday temptation is, Tom?
My biggest everyday temptation. Oh boy. Uh, I hate to say it, but my biggest single everyday temptation is to smoke a cigarette. I mean,
Really?
over the years, I've snuck them and snuck them and snuck them, and when I usually don't smoke any more than one cigarette in a day. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I tend to feel a lot of guilt about, but I really enjoy it when I smoke that cigarette. So, you know, and it's something that is response that you just gave that generally really surprises people. What,
Yeah.
you are you kidding me? But I started smoking, and when I was little, growing up in Anaconda, Montana, as a teenager, and over the years I've never really stopped. you know,
Hmm.
and I don't much, and I can go days, weeks. I don't feel like an addiction to cigarettes,
Hmm.
that sort of thing, because I just don't do it enough. But boy, when I smoke a cigarette, I just smoke the hell out of it, and I really enjoy it. So, so
Let's
there
get
is
that
that.
full
Yeah.
value. Nice. Wow, yeah. That did blow the top off my mind. So for the viewers at home, Tom Fleming was my seventh grade music teacher. So this is very much like finding out Mr. Rogers, drank beer or something like that. This is blowing the top off my mind already.
Yeah, well, you can count on it. Sometimes when I went home for lunch, when I would smoke a cigarette every now and then, you know, even in the early 2000s, when I think you were in middle school. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, from one temptation to another, what movie will you never skip when channel surfing?
What movie will I never skip? It's channel surfing. It's on constantly. Godfather.
Oh, yeah.
And AMC is like the Godfather channel. They should just rename it, really. You know, and I get pulled into that so often. I mean, I have the thing memorized, but I love that movie so much. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it could be Godfather 1, Godfather 3. I don't really, but 1 or 2,
Yeah.
I really, really love it. So I'll say, yeah, okay, one more time, and then I'll sit and watch it. Yeah.
If, God forbid, you had to evacuate your house, there's a flood, there's a fire, what's the first non-living thing you would grab and rescue to safety?
Well, that would have to be, back in the day. I don't know if Erin's probably, yeah, she's older than you. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put you in contact, with my other kids. I think you're probably closest to Judy. Is that right?
Hmm.
But I think she might even be a couple of years older or younger. I can't remember.
I was born in 87.
In 87. Okay, so Judy was born in 84. So that's our youngest. She's a little bit
Okay.
older. Okay, so anyway, Aaron was in the state spelling bee in Las Vegas. We stayed at the Excalibur, and we walked by a guy who was drawing caricatures. You've seen him, right?
Hmm.
You know,
Yep.
amusement parks, whatever. And he was really good. And he had this thing, $15. We thought, yeah, okay, $15. So there's 7 of us, 5 kids, Patty and I, and he says, I got to do you separately, so all of you sit, and so we each sat, and then he did this picture, which is hanging in the kitchen. I'd love for this to be, video here for a moment just to see it, but he did such a good job. Yes, I want it. Well, he says, that will be, and it turns out 15 times 7.
Oh, Lord.
I'm so naive. So,
Got
and
him.
and it was like, and we were really poor at the time. I mean, this was not something we could afford.
Yeah.
I just, Patty and I, we conferenced, we huddled. The kids were like, "Oh, we got to get it, Dad." So yeah, we got it, and it's now, yes, it's my prize. That's the one thing I would say.
Yeah.
Since I can save that, there's another old timey, from old Sacramento, where you dress up. I would save that one too, since I can grab them both at the same time. So yeah,
Yeah. Art is definitely one of those things that can never be, As much as it can be copied, it can never be truly recaptured.
That's
To be
true.
sure.
Yeah.
What comes to mind when I say underrated?
Underrated is, I think, not fully appreciated. And I just said, from my perspective, I am a lover of Celtic music. I absolutely love Celtic music. And if I dream of, one thing as far as musically, it would have to be being in a Celtic band. But, to learn all of the ins and outs of the, alternate tunings that you use on guitar, and I love it. And if there's one kind of music I listen to more than any other, it would be Celtic music. But it is extraordinary. We've been to Ireland just for music festivals,
Oh,
and
wow.
we schedule everything around a music festival. We do some of the standard, tourist stuff apart from that. But the music festivals in Ireland are just so, so amazing. And I would have to say that, that when I try and get other people to appreciate uh, Celtic music, most people just like, yeah, it sounds interesting, but I mean, it, it- it's uh, it's really amazing. It's not just but the new groups, especially nowadays, that incorporate old, traditional Celtic music with some newer styles, like the Chieftains are always bringing in guest
Yeah.
artists to perform with the Chieftains, and so they put this Celtic flair, sort of a uh, Celtic underpinning, I suppose, to some standard or songs, that singers like to sing, and I just love it. So I would
You,
have
you
to
took
say,
the you took the words right out of my mouth.
yeah,
The Chieftains are one of the bands that I was going to ask you about. Yeah, it's growing up. My dad was a huge fan of this very underseen version of Treasure Island that was scored completely by the Chieftains, and
uh,
it is
yeah.
magnificent. And that definitely it turned me on to that, and I completely agree. It's not well enough known given how tremendous it truly is.
And bluegrass music in America, if I'm not listening to Celtic, I'm probably listening to bluegrass. Uh,
The sister across the pond for from
yeah,
Celtic
yeah,
music, basically.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that it developed out of our bluegrass. I think definitely has roots in Celtic music. So
Totally.
yeah, and then once again, I mean, there are some groups that are doing extraordinary, extraordinary things, within that that general style. So I sent you some of my, perfect songs. Many of them are Celtic. So you asked for one, I sent many, and just because there's just so much beautiful music out there. Yeah,
Truly.
yeah.
All right. What's your favorite industry secret or term that you think is only used in your line of work that you'd like to share with us today?
Well, I can't say that it's only used anymore because I have heard other people use it. But it's a term called chops, having chops for something. And that, as a trumpet player, you're a brass player, you played low,
Mm-hmm.
and the conductor would say, if I'm playing in an orchestra, playing in a band, you might stop after an arduous rehearsal and ask the trumpet players, especially, how's your chops? As
Mm-hmm.
in the strength of your mouth, or what's called your embouchure, when you're playing a tone. Because when your chops get tired, tone goes, you can't play high notes anymore. I mean, just all sorts of really evil things happen, when your chops go. And so it was a term for brass players, sometimes clarinet, oboe players, et cetera, who really had to tighten up and use that muscle. How's your chops? But musicians started to use it with regard to, other musicians, any skill, like how, he's got good jazz chops,
Mm-hmm.
the drummer, or his legit chops, for a jazz musician. He's also got legit chops, which means he can play play well in a classical orchestra, classical music, that sort of thing, and so somebody has chops. Well, musicians, just at some point, and it seems like, within about the last 15, 20 years, started using chops to refer to any skill by anybody. He's
Mm-hmm.
got good cooking chops, or he's got good, his chops for carpentry are just beyond anything I've ever seen. He's got so it just started to be used by musicians especially, and I didn't hear others use it like in that manner to refer to any skill, by anybody. But I have heard now a couple of people use the term chops with regard to skills, beyond the sphere of music.
It's got to be a bit confusing when talking about somebody having good cooking chops, because then you're thinking, okay, so they can cook pork, but now what else can they do?
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of times, cooking chops has to do with a specific, like French cuisine. Does he have chops for French cuisine? That means does he cook French food well? And so it's yeah, or he's got no chops for sauces
Yeah.
of any sort. Burns them every time. Too much butter. Yeah.
Is there a piece of advice that you've gotten over the years that has made a big impact on your life?
Ah, boy. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it was advice that I deliberately went and sought, you know. But again, I suppose it has to, but it's one that has affected absolutely everything in my life, when I began to practice it. And that is be here now, be present, and this has to do with being out of one's mind. But it's a skill. It's something that, to be, driven around sort of, by the short hairs, so to speak, you know, by a mind that is just constantly busy, you know, keeps you from sleeping, keeps you from paying attention to something. You can be looking at somebody, talking to somebody, and they're looking right at you, and you don't hear a word they say because you're in your head. You're comparing what they're saying, or you're planning what you're going to say in response, or you're becoming defensive about, if it's a criticism that somebody's saying to you, et cetera. But you're not really present. You might be physically looking at them, or et cetera, but you're not really present. And so one of the skills that I very deliberately began to develop was to be present, to be fully with someone, to be fully with an experience, and so now, when I'm doing something, I'm able to just really be present with whatever I'm doing. When I'm speaking with someone, I'm able to be very present with the person. Sometimes, as a matter of fact, that, to be interviewed as you were doing with me, it often feels a little bit odd to me because I often prefer to be on the other end of it, the one listening and asking questions. And, because part of being present is deliberately being fascinated or deciding to be curious about something, to look and to really notice the details of something, This is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I'm going to mention one other thing about it. This is the magic of art, of great art, a work of art. It brings one into the present moment. At a great concert where everything is just going well, I mean, you really get the experience of an audience and performers being absolutely present together in this moment. There's no separation that feels often between the performer and the audience. They're really, really, there's no thoughts, no conflict going on in people's head. There's no urge to, it's just like, wow, I'm here. I'm really appreciating, and when we go to a museum of great art, we just contemplate, boom, we're able to really contemplate. We're just looking at this great work of art. And it's just this feeling of wow, this fascination, this curiosity, this presence, and that is, to me, the greatest gift that we can give one another in life is to be completely present with others, to be completely like here now in this moment. And so I would have to say that is the best advice I've ever gotten, that advice that I sought out from others and began to practice that in my life.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I've heard that over the years, and more as time has gone on, I've been able to slowly implement it. But it is one of the most impactful and simultaneously difficult practices to do. But it is kind of fascinating you talking about with the musical performance, because I think that is like one of the rare kind of coincidences where both parties can be present, even though one is doing and one is receiving. To like have both be like kind of there in like a simultaneous moment is kind of, it's almost like saying it out loud with those descriptors. It's almost sensual. and that, you know, you have two parties enjoying this activity from two sides of like a coin, basically. You know, you have one person presenting, you know, the music and the other person ingesting it, but they're both able to, if they're, you know, both doing it right, if you will, they're both able to like kind of be there and just be like kind of almost consumed by it.
Yeah, it's magical. I mean, it's often feels miraculous to some people, you
Yeah.
know, and in some respects, it has the qualities of the miraculous, just simply being present. Yeah.
Well, speaking about miraculous, do you have a favorite anecdote you'd like to tell us today?
Uh, yeah, that's, I don't know if this falls anecdote, but I was just thinking about a student of mine, and I think this goes to a lot that we've been, talking about thus far. But I had a student back in the day, and you know, uh, I don't know where she is now or what she's up to. So, but her name was Beth. I'm not going to say any last names here for the moment, just I protect privacy. But her name was Beth, and she arrived. This was like in the early '90s, and she arrived. I had a study hall when I first started teaching. Uh, it's amazing when I think about that. That I was a teacher of a study hall, and she came into study hall, and it's very quiet. Never said, And anyway, I was a good friend with the counselor, Roberta, and she came in and she asked about this girl, and she says, I wonder, she seemed to at least express an interest when we really pressed her in music. So can I put her in your fifth period choir? And I said, yeah, sure. So she came in and she sat, and I didn't know, and she didn't know whether she was an alto or soprano, but I had an empty seat next to this girl named Betty. And so I put her next to Betty. And then I really didn't hear anything from her, but Betty did. Betty
Hmm.
could hear her sing. And so Betty came up to me once and she says, this girl, Beth, she's got a really, really, really good voice. You should ask her to sing a solo. So I thought, okay. And then I tried to hear her, but I couldn't really distinguish her voice from others. I mean, she's very, very quiet. So, but Betty worked on her, you know, and Betty, she convinced her. She says, "If I do it with you, if I help you, if I hold your hand, will you sing a solo with me?" And so she did. And on that solo, I could hear Betty, but I really couldn't hear Beth. But
Mm-hmm.
but there again, Betty, could hear her and kept pressing. So I said I had auditions coming up for honor choir. The girl auditioned for honor choir. You could barely hear her, but you could hear that she had chops. You know,
Yep.
and so she auditioned. She didn't make it, but we kept it up and kept it up, and then we had spring jam. And I don't know if you remember spring jam. I did this. This is when I was teaching high school, before in the early '90s, and spring jam is a lot of solos. Out in the quad, outdoor concert in the spring, all pop music. So she said, yeah, maybe I will. And so I found a bluesy tune, an arrangement of, I think it was God Bless the Child, the Billie Holiday tune. And so she sang it. And I always make the kids, they have to sing it in front of class so that we can deal with stage fright issues, because that always shows
Yep.
up. So she did, but she would only do it if she could turn her back on everybody. So she sang it into the microphone, and it was just, everybody was it's just beyond blown away. I mean, it
Yep.
was, oh my God, she was so good. And that place erupted. My room erupted when she finished.
Awesome.
And anyway, long story short, that girl went on to major in music at the University of Nevada, $2,000 a year scholarship, and went on to be the lead role in Kiss Me Kate, for example, a production that they did at University of Nevada while she was there in Reno. And it was just an absolute, it's one of the things that I just, ponder from time to time. She kept in touch with me for a lot of years, but I haven't heard from her for probably at least 10 years now, Beth. But at any rate, it's just something that I cherish. And it
Yeah.
wasn't, I'd like to say it was me, but it wasn't. It was, Roberta, it was Betty, it was all the other kids in the class. Eventually it was, I think that it kind of goes to, what happens collaboratively in the
Hmm.
arts, to bring people to a point of, true presence, I guess, lack of a
Yeah.
better word. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so beautiful in that story to hear all the people that were not in their own head, right? They
Yeah.
were listening and they heard and they saw and they took notice of signs and of, talent and didn't sit on it and go, "Huh, whatever, that's their deal." They got out of they got out of their own like mental way and saw what was going on and were able to do something beautiful
Yeah.
for somebody else because of it. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and there's a few other stories I have like that, but we'll leave it at that one here for the moment. But yeah,
Fill in the blank for me, Tom.
okay.
This weekend was so great. I spent 13 hours.
I spent 13 hours working on a uh, oak coffee table with a raised lid that I'm making. Actually, I'm making two of them, one for my sister and one for my brother, or my son Nolan. Yeah,
Awesome.
solid oak, and it's shaping up to be quite beautiful. So yeah.
It sounds also like it's shaping up to be quite expensive.
Well, no, the materials, I'm making it out of oak, and the oak was about $4 a board foot. I bought 30 feet of, raw wood, so I shape it all myself. It's a lot less expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Like I plane it and I cut it, and it's I run it on a joiner, all of that. So, at any rate, with everything done, these will end up costing a total of about $150.
Oh, not too bad at
And
all,
then
yeah.
and then a lot of labor, maybe $175. That includes the special. I have to order special hinges for them that raise straight up. That it basically turns it into something of a coffee table or sorry, a TV tray, I guess
Okay,
you'd think,
yeah.
or you can lift it if you want to like work
Hmm.
at a computer, what have you. It brings it up and toward you.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. So I didn't know this about you that how long have you been doing carpentry for?
Well, I started doing carpentry, in earnest. Probably about the time back in the day, we used to Patty and I we used to go to Mexico with a group of kids, teenagers, to build houses.
Hmm.
And it wasn't through Habitat for Humanity, but it was something similar.
Hmm.
Um, but we did it in Mexico, and we did it on spring break every year. And so, and we did everything by hand because a lot of times, there was like there's hand saws and things like that for various reasons that I won't get into. But and I really enjoyed it, and I had done some small bits of carpentry up to that, but I enjoyed it to the point where I thought, well, I want to keep making stuff, so I just started getting tools, and I'd sell stuff and use the money that I made on selling things to buy more tools. So little by little, I've got quite a little shop. I put everything on wheels, so that I can spread it out, and then over the years now, I've made tons and tons and tons of things. So it's and yeah, I really really enjoy it a lot. Yeah.
That's awesome. What's your favorite, oh, I am normal or I am not that weird moment that you've had over the course of your life?
I am normal, or I'm not that weird. Uh, I am normal. I am normal. I am
Or
normal.
maybe rather that you're not the only one experiencing this. Like for me and one of my recent guests, it was, oh, stage fright is something that happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Like anxiety and stuff like that. Was there a moment that, is pertinent or stands out in your mind, or was kind of like the first time that really came across you where you realized, oh, I'm not alone?
Yeah, recent. Well, I should say recently. It's been 3 years. 3 years ago, I was just feeling anxious, and the nurse at the high school. I was teaching high school. I just taught only high school for the last 10 years of my teaching, and I know the nurse really well. She was also the costumer in about 5,000 musicals that I've directed. And so she says, let me get your blood pressure. So she did, and I took my blood pressure. It was high. She says you should go to the doctor. I went to the doctor. The doctor says, oh, he gave me a physical, which included blood stuff, a blood test for various things, standard for my age. And anyway, long story short, because of that, 3 months later, I was in surgery getting my prostate removed. I had prostate cancer. So, um, and that was, come back to earth, Thomas Fleming, that whole thing,
Yeah.
and in the process, I got to find out or meet a lot of people that I had known, many of them for years and years, that, I had prostate cancer, and this is what happened to me. And I have found out that, with regard to cancer in general, uh, that there are groups, once again, collaborative groups, which I love, people that are focused on improving the world together, in some aspect or other, and so that happened for me. And I just realized that, yeah, I'm normal,
Yeah.
I need help, and I appreciate that there are people there for me, people that I
Hmm.
can chat with, people that I can laugh with about it, and,
Yeah.
so it turned out, in spite of the fact that, I still live with some side effects with regard to having no prostate, uh, which I don't want to talk about in this, but that there are people that are experiencing the same thing that I can communicate quite freely with,
Yeah.
yeah, and some that had been great friends for many years that had never, I didn't know that about, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but that's a beautiful byproduct of
Yeah.
this horrific occurrence. So I'm glad you're able to find that in that. If you could have listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
Oh boy. Hmm. Well, I think one song of my choosing. There are so many. There's a little song by this great singer named Jessica Hoop, Jesca, Jessica Hoop, and it's called. Um, Suddenly, I can't remember the name of it. Oh yeah,
I
Enemy.
believe it's called Enemy.
Yeah, and it's such a simple, beautiful little song, and she does these harmonies, through the thing, and it's got this simple, beautiful little guitar accompaniment that it's short, and I would have to say that would be it. Enemy by Jessica Hoop. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's beautiful. Thanks. Is there a moment that you look back in your life that you find the most pride or joy in looking back? It brings a smile to your face and a glint in your eye, as it were.
Well, it'd have to be around my mother's death, which was I always know how long ago my mother died. All I have to do is remember how old my oldest granddaughter uh, is, Adele, Aaron's oldest, because mom died just a few months before Adele was born. And my mother and I were very close. I have 11 brothers and sisters, big family,
I'll say.
and we went to Montana. We called it the pilgrimage, the pilgrimage to Montana every single summer. Not just to visit my family, but Patty's family also.
Hmm.
My wife, we're both from Montana, and then when mom started getting sick, to the point that we knew she didn't have much time left. She's well into her late 80s. That she had all of her wits about her, which I'm very happy about. But her body just got so where she couldn't do gardening, which is the thing she loved more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that we, not just me, but all of my grown kids were made deliberate, conscious effort to visit her,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And and over the course of all that time, it was something that, just being with her was always joyous, was always, and then when she died, the funny thing is that my sister Maggie, my youngest sister, is the only one who lives in the same town as Mom,
Mm-hmm.
up in northwestern Montana. She and then my brother, one of my brothers, Dan, came, and they were present with her in the home, when in her house when she died. And my mother had gotten to visit with my sister Cecilia, and it was like she was waiting for Seal to come and visit, because the day after Cecilia,
Mm-hmm.
the day after Cecilia left, she lived in North Carolina at the time. Maggie came to give Mom her meds, and Mom just said, no,
Mm-hmm.
no more of that. And then she just decided that, okay, it's time, and she stopped using her meds. And these meds were the only reason that she could stay alive day to day,
Yeah.
And then 2 days, maybe 3 days later, she had died. She didn't eat anymore, even though she could have, and she just stopped taking her meds. And she died very peacefully.
Yeah.
And she died on her own terms. And I feel nothing but really happiness around that, just in knowing that she knew that she was loved.
Yeah. That,
So,
that's so beautiful and touching. Thank you for sharing that with us, Tom.
yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we are back. Tom, what is the passion that you've brought to share with us today?
Well, my life has pretty much always been about music. No matter what else I'm doing, I have a lot of interests. But it always comes back somehow to music. In the early '90s, I quit teaching to do some writing, and I wrote a novel. Early 2000s, I ended up writing 7 screenplays, and and I just had this. I felt like, oh, this is my real passion. This is where it's at. I just want to
Mm-hmm.
write. I want to write, and I do love writing. I still write, a lot, but I got a couple of screenplays that were optioned. One of them made it. I mean, I don't need to get into details, but I got to meet a lot of interesting people in Los Angeles, and have a lot of hope, for becoming,
Mm-hmm.
like a famous screenwriter, novelist, etc.
Yeah.
But in the process, at this point, I wasn't making any money, and we did have 5 kids, and most of the kids that, you know, when I was, especially they were all little when I was writing novels, and then most were still at home when I was writing screenplays, and I needed to be making money, so I was substitute teaching in the schools, and I was, uh, I ended up working for a year at a treatment center for alcoholics, and I did few other things while continuing to write and send things out, enter contests, and all sorts of things. But then I got a call, both in the early '90s and then in 2000s, as I quit for teaching in the early 2000s for writing screenplays at that point, and things that I really had to be free for to follow up with because I'd gotten some screenplays optioned.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at any rate, I got a call in the early '90s from a friend of mine who taught at Reed High School in Reno, in Sparks, actually. And he said, I need somebody to teach for me because I want to take a year off. He also had a dream. He wanted to go to Nashville. He's a songwriter, great songwriter, as a matter of fact. His name's John Lorenzen. And and that just appealed to me. It's like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that for a year, you know? So I taught for him, and it was wonderful. And I thought, yeah, this is, I'm, I'm good at it, and it comes easy to me. And I love the collaborative efforts of doing a musical. I love working with other people to create something great, something wonderful, conducting orchestras, conducting choirs, conducting bands, where we're all in this together, where you really have to be in a position, to sort of inspire others. So then I quit again for the sake of screenplays in 2000s, but continued to teach, from, about 1994, I think, up till about 2001. And then I quit teaching again for screenplays. And then a friend of mine, once again in Sparks, Nevada, was teaching middle school, and she was pregnant. She was having a baby, and to, she needed somebody to start because her baby was due in January. And so after Christmas break, she asked if I would do it. And once again, I thought, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. So I taught for her in Sparks, and I loved it. And I continued teaching then all the way up until I retired with, 30 some odd years of teaching. And this time when I got back into, I think the best years of my teaching, you hear about burnout, all of that. That never happened with me. It never, I got to be, I think that I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I was a better teacher in my last 10, 15 years of teaching than I was early on, and I just loved it. And
Mm-hmm.
I had made a decision, that when I started teaching again, that I am going to love this and I'm going to be deliberate about it. And I might continue to write, but this just keeps pulling me back, keeps pulling me back. And at first I resisted that, but then I stopped resisting it and just dove into it as completely as I've ever have anything in my life, you know, teaching and conducting. And then I started becoming much more involved, like with at the state level, with all state committee, listening, doing auditions, and conducting honor groups, and various things like that. And so I can see that throughout music, has just been part of my life. My mother was a great pianist, and in spite of the fact that my mom and dad never really pushed any of us in music, and so of my 11 brothers and sisters and I, the 12 kids, I was the one that really pursued music, and nobody else did, uh, not as I did, at least. And
Mm-hmm.
and I was inspired by my band director, when I was first learning and all through high school. I love that man.
Yeah.
His name's Arlie Schultz in Anaconda, Montana. And I just I wanted to be like him, So uh, just from an early age, that was That was the one thing that always pulled me and continues to. And now I play guitar more than anything, but I cantor at Catholic Mass. As I say, I often say to people, I'm not much of a
Mhm.
Catholic, but I don't know about that, because I love going to Mass. There's a lot of things that I don't really believe, but it's my family. I mean, these are the people that I have always known,
Mhm.
and I feel very comfortable there, and it feels very natural for me there. But in the process of all of this, I discovered that musicians, artists in general, uh, but in my area of music, that this is a way to be in service to others. And through the process of all this, service to others became what I feel to be is really the only truly valuable goal for me to have in life, you know. And so I started basically just telling my students that, if you are nervous, if this is some, just think of the impact, think of the service that you are doing for others. And my students began to respond to that. And so, especially over the last 10, 15 years, they began to see what they do as an act of service to others, as giving a gift to others. And so they approached it with attitude, that attitude of giving a gift. And I think that stirs passions. If you can think of passions as being inspired to do something great, you know, to do something wonderful. And it seems to me as if that inspiration is usually directed outward. It's not just for the sake of
Mhm.
me, but it's for the sake of others. It's for the sake of the world.
Yep.
It's for the sake of a community. It's for the sake of, this group of people, and to view an audience as the receivers of a gift, and to even view one another. Like if you're singing in a choir, say, and you're standing on the risers and you look to your right and you look to your left, and you just think of this as we are all giving a gift to one another, and then we're sending that gift in common out to others, to inspire others. And, to bring it back to another point that, we were talking about earlier, to bring people into this moment, to bring people out of their heads. Uh, that's
Mm.
that's a real gift, and I think it's comes from that's sort of passion to I suppose passion in some way might be linked to a desire to inspire. So yeah,
Yeah.
my first instrument was a guitar, and I begged for it for Christmas, and we didn't have much money, but I was in, I think, fourth grade, third or fourth grade, and so and
Mhm.
my mom, they got me a guitar. They got me out of the Sears catalog. I don't know if that's part of your lifetime, but yeah, your parents will know all about the Sears catalog. Yeah, that lovely, wonderful Sears catalog, and it was, I think, $39 for a guitar, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was probably the worst guitar ever made. um, but I just thought this is how guitars are. It was just really, really, really hard to play. Another great word in among musicians is action for a guitarist. And I don't know if you play guitar or not, but action on a guitar is how hard is it or how easy it is to basically press the string down onto the
Mhm.
fretboard. It's got great action means it's easy. The action on an electric guitar is easier than on an acoustic guitar, for example. But the action on that guitar was terrible. I mean, and my hand it took a long time and it really hurt. But my parents had the attitude, we spent a lot of money
Yeah.
on
That's a
that thing.
that's a
If you
T-shirt
really
if I've
wanted
ever
it,
heard
we
one.
got it for you. And so, boom,
Desire
here it
to
is.
inspire.
So, and I took lessons from
So
a
not
nun,
to rewind the
in
clock too much, but to rewind the
that
clock a
served our
lot.
parish.
When
And
you
she was
first started in
wonderful. I
music,
learned a
how
song
old were
called
you and what was your first
Today While the
instrument?
Blossoms Still Cling to the Vine, I'll taste your strawberries, I'll drink your sweet wine. million tomorrows will all pass away. And it was really easy to learn, and it was in an easy key. And so that was the first song that I learned. And it was painful, and it hurt. It hurt. I mean, I cried. It was just really, really painful, but I kept at it. And eventually,
it's a little bit before my time, but yeah.
None of my other brothers and sisters. I have one sister was in the orchestra, she played violin.
Oh yes.
And but all my other brothers and sisters had not done it. So, but I wanted to play the trumpet, and that's all there was to it. I just wanted to play the trumpet. So I started that in the 5th grade with Arlie Schultz in Anaconda, and and I just loved Arlie. Arlie was funny. He was inspiring. I mean, I
do not.
Yeah, not just on me, but on a lot of people. Yeah. So, but I didn't, when I went on to college, I didn't think twice about what I wanted to major in. I wanted to major in music, and then I wanted to write also. And so I wasn't sure what to major. So I majored in music, and, now here I am. So, at Montana State University. My wife and I, Patty and I, we met in the marching band. Yep. That's how we met. We were both in the trumpet line at Montana State University. So, and we had to come early. At that time, school started around the quarter system, started the end of September. And the football season started, way before then. And so the band had to come, way earlier than everyone else. And so they gave us like free room and food for, I think, 2 weeks, something like that, so that we could get ready for football games and be there when, before the rest of the student body. So, and that's when Patty and I met, and, eventually fell in love. And so, boom, there it is. All of our kids are brass players. So, our daughter Judy is so funny. She came up to me when she was in middle school. At the then junior high. And she's an 8th grader, and she's signing up for classes at the high school, and she comes in and she just starts crying. I said, well, what's wrong? She says, Dad, I don't want to play the trumpet anymore. I want to play the cello.
Truly. It sounds like you left a very large.
And I you want to play the cello? That's wonderful. I hope you know. But she thought I was going to be so hurt that she didn't want to play the trumpet anymore. So, yeah. Like it was a family thing that, you just had to do. So, disowned. Yeah. Well, the biggest misconception is the by far. I don't even have to think about this one. It's like if you can't do, then teach.
Oh,
have you heard that one? Yeah, and that's a real misconception on a lot. Well, he's not much of a performer, so I guess you're gonna have to teach. And man, that irks me.
Yeah,
it's just because I wish that I could take all of the friends that I have that are music educators and bring them all into a room with all of the world leaders in the whole universe and say, do you want to solve the world's problems?
That's
Here
so
are
awesome.
the people that are going to help you do it.
Raise them right.
I'm not even exaggerating. You're looking at a group of people whose essence is to work collaboratively with others, whose very essence of their nature is to inspire others to do great things. The very essence of what these people do is bring people into this moment. That's the very essence. You have to do it in rehearsal.
Yeah.
You have to rehearse it. You have to breathe deeply. In a certain way. You have to stand.
She thought she was going to be exiled
and sit and align your body in a certain manner.
What would you say
on one level,
the biggest misconception about teaching music is by the wider
so
world?
Far beyond the stage, beyond the rehearsal room. It becomes for musicians this way of living. This manner of living, living collaboratively, living inspirational lives. And these are the people that I think that hold the key. And it's not just musicians, so to speak, but just artists in general. You know, they intuitively, have the keys to peace, have the keys to, to problem solving, have the keys to an end to discord. It's and it just, boy, talk about something that goes underappreciated.
Yeah.
So these are incredible beings, absolutely incredible beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A non-obvious aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's, you watch a conductor at a performance, at a concert, and in many respects, this might not be obvious, but in many respects, if they, the conductor's got chops, and the performers of the performing group, if they've got the
Mm-hmm.
chops, and they're well rehearsed, they're talented, the conductor doesn't need to be there in many instances. And
Yeah.
I shouldn't say in all instances by any stretch, but in many instances, the conductor does not need to be there. And because it's in the rehearsal room that all of this is accomplished,
Mm-hmm.
and the performers will. I mean, I'm talking about people that are really, they're very talented,
Truly.
very well trained, and yeah, this is their life. Yeah, and when I think of great orchestras, in many instances, if the conductor is
So
not
from something
there,
that people don't
they're going
understand
to
to something people
continue
don't
to
know, is there a
sound,
non-obvious
very
aspect
close
that
to
you would
what
like to
they
explain about
what they
teaching and
what you
or
would expect, or
perhaps
what you would hope
performing
for.
music that most people just
And
don't realize even
and
exists?
this may not be obvious to others. It's like, boy, if that conductor's not up there, they're not going to stay together. But all of this, through the course of rehearsals, through the course, the intuitive takes over, at some point. And I might get in an argument with my fellow musician friends, but there's been a lot of times, when I know that I've had students and I know that they're well prepared, sometimes, I just step aside, and because I know that I can, because I just want to watch, and listen. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, I want to fully appreciate, and
Yeah.
as a member, so to speak, of the audience, so sometimes conducting, I mean, I would just feel overwhelmed by this gift coming at me. The conductor, what a conductor is in electricity, of course, something that electricity can pass through, and
Yeah.
conductor in
This
music,
is their life.
oftentimes you can kind of really see in the same way. The energy from all of these beings that are, pass, you can think of it as passing through that conductor and then out to the audience. And
Mm-hmm.
so in that respect, the conductor is sort of channeling that energy, comes through that conductor and out to the audience and is multiplied many times over. It's like an exponential multiplication. That 30 becomes 100 or 150 or 200
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it might be. That sort of energy that really affects an audience, brings people into this moment, so to speak. It's that sense of awe, that sense of wonder, that we all experience together. And but when trained well, the students just do it. They
Mm-hmm.
they send that energy out, conductor or not. They just do. Yeah.
You want to contemplate on their musical performance as opposed to participate. Mm-hmm.
Preposterous peeve. The preposterous peeve that still exists
Mm-hmm.
in my life after all these years is microphone cords or cables, or speaker cables,
Yeah.
improperly wrapped speaker cables. Oh man, especially speaker cables. They can get pretty long. Depending up to, and if somebody just grabs them and wraps them
Mm-hmm.
around there, real quickly, they get kinks, and within those kinks, they get shorts, and then they become really difficult to unwrap and spread out when it comes time. And it is the easiest thing in the world to wrap them correctly. There's just virtually nothing easier than to wrap them correctly. Well, and so uh, I cantor, at St. Patrick's, the Catholic Church here in Fallon, at the Mass on Sundays, the 8 o'clock Mass. And I use equipment now that
Yeah.
there are other cantors, other musicians that cantor the other Masses.
That's awesome.
So we use the same stuff. And
Yeah.
so when I'm done, I wrap everything just so, and you have to make it so
Yeah.
that there's no kinks, but also
That's
so
so
that,
beautiful.
when the next
All
time
right.
you need
Well,
it,
to
it just
switch
beautifully
from
unwraps. You
the
don't have to
magnificent
undo things or,
passion to something
untwist things or
preposterously
anything.
obnoxious,
And
Tom,
so
what is your
I put it
preposterous
away exactly
peeve
the
that you
same.
brought for
And
us
then
today?
and then there's this part of me, and I feel like it's an ego thing for me, is that will they notice this time? The other people that use it. Will they notice how easy this is to take out? Will they notice how unkinked it is? Will they then say to
Mm-hmm.
themselves, "Oh wow, look at how these are wrapped. Now I'm going to do it this way. It looks it is easy," and then put it back. And that
Yep.
hope of mine has yet to be realized, because usually when I come back the following Sunday, I pull the microphone out and the thing is just twisted all to hell. And then it's just like, So anyway, that's my pet peeve. You know, when I've been my own roadie. Well, Patty and I, my own roadie. Both I played in rock and roll bands, and as well as with my students. But especially when I was doing rock, I'd be putting stuff away at the end, and invariably somebody'd come up and they'd want to help, and after a period of time, I would say, "Yeah, you can help with this, with that, the other, but I will wrap the cords,"
Mm-hmm.
because it's just like, yeah, it's just not worth it. Yeah. Somebody taught me how to wrap them when I was still in high school. You know, and I think probably the very first time I ever did it. This was after a program or whatever, and I helped, and this is how you wrap the cords, and so I did it, and so I don't know that I've ever wrapped them, incorrectly. I just right from the beginning I knew, but you know. Especially when I started playing rock and roll bands, if there was somebody helping, everybody in the band all knew how and all did it right. So if it was just us, then boom, it was easy. You didn't have to look over anybody's shoulder. But I just I would take time. If somebody was helping, I would say, okay, this is how you wrap the cords, and so this is the one thing you can help me, but you got to do it just like this. And then I would take time and show the person, and then sometimes it wouldn't go so well. But I tell you, most people just left to their own devices, that aren't musicians, they'll just grab that thing and just make a mess out of it, and they don't know it, so.
uh, when did you first notice that, like, this was like kind of not only a peeve for you, but that people were doing it so wrong? Was it like pretty quickly off the bat, like you figured it out and other people just never did? Or was it something that you weren't great at in the beginning, learned how to do, and then saw the error in everybody else's ways? Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It just it's just something that
totally.
yeah.
It's not something that's lost in my realm either. When I went to film school, I had a morning class that each day it was practical. Thank you, Chris Carpenter. And there was one day that was literally, here's how you wrap a cable, rinse, repeat. Here's how you, and he made everybody in the class do it multiple times over the course of one morning. That's all we did. Most mornings we would cover something big and important or interesting. One day it was just, here's how you do a cable. And it was, he put them out on the floor, somebody wrapped them up. Good. And if you got it, I think if you got it on the first try, he's just like, pass, you can leave, you can do whatever. And if you got it wrong, you had to go back through and think that you had to do it twice. If you got it wrong once, you had to do it right twice to leave. And he just kept, people wrap him up, and then he'd throw them like he like he hated the cord on the floor. Like, all right, fix it, wrap it up right, and just like rinse, repeat. It's just like, I don't know if those cables were even mildly usable afterwards for the amount of wear and tear. They probably shorted out. But holy cow, it was a hilarious day of just like watching people. I think I got it on the first one through. I was like third in line, watched it. I was like, okay, yeah, it's pretty simple. There was
Yeah.
so many people, like you said, just like how to like it was like throwing them calculus after they just passed like multiplication. And they were just like, what is this? And just like completely lost. It was hilarious. But yeah, it is something that it somewhat easy, but at the same time utterly flabbergasting to many.
Yeah.
Can't imagine how annoying that is for you. All
Yeah.
right, and with sorry, go
No, no, no. I was just going. I really appreciate that guy, and yeah,
ahead.
uh, I want to take that class.
Take that class and bring everybody you've ever had
That's right.
misrap it with you.
Yeah.
All right, and with that, we're going to head to our second ad break. But don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Tom is going to enter
The
the.
lightning round.
See
Ooh.
you in a bit.
All right.
Having trouble staying awake?
Oh, yeah.
Wish you'd followed your dream so you had the give a crap necessary to meet your deadlines?
Oh, definitely.
Are you likely to be fired the second another warm body walks through that door and asks your boss for an application?
Probably.
Would you prefer to keep this shit sack of a job instead of explaining to Susan that you've been fired?
I mean, I guess.
Well, then let me introduce you to caffeine. Caffeine is a highly addictive substance that'll keep you jittery and energized to do any fucking stupid task for hours.
That sounds like drugs.
It is!
Aren't drugs illegal?
Not this one. So next time you feel like sitting on the sidewalk instead of at your desk, reach for a caffeine.
Wait, you didn't tell me where I can buy it.
'Cause it's mother loving everywhere, you blind Neanderthal. And we are back. Tom, are you ready to enter the...
Lightning round.
I am. I have my finger on the button right now.
All right. Put however much time it takes to bake this cookie on the clock. Tom, is there a god?
Sort of.
Shakira's voice in Danny DeVito's body or Danny DeVito's voice in Shakira's body?
You just got to go with Danny DeVito and Shakira's body.
Have you ever paid more for a meal than you made in a week?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Another amazing thing.
Would you rather give up cheese or naps?
Ew. Cheese.
Are hot dogs sandwiches?
No.
No one's looking. Do you put the cart back or leave it in the parking lot?
I put it back. I'm one of those.
If you had the power to see the future but couldn't change it, would you use it?
But I couldn't change how power to see the food. Where do I use it? Yeah, sure.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Pineapple on pizza.
Kill the spider or get an adult?
Kill the spider.
Is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Most definitely.
Kanye, yes or no?
No.
Which one of your parents settled?
Mom.
Which do you max out first? Intelligence, charisma, or strength?
Strength.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
No.
Tacos or burritos?
Burritos.
Are we alone in the universe?
No.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Gilbert Gottfried.
Are Cheez-Its addicting?
No.
Lions, tigers, or bears?
Bears.
Would you rather be 10 minutes late for everything or 20 minutes early for everything?
20 minutes early.
Are you happy with your life right now?
Oh, yes.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Make the food.
Is Marvel overrated?
Yes.
Congratulations. You've survived the lightning round.
Whoa!
Well, what lightning round question would you like to ask me and in turn be asked of future guests?
Okay, do you call it a euphonium or a baritone?
I call it a baritone.
Okay.
What do you call it?
It depends on my audience. If I'm in the middle of a bunch of snobs, then I call it euphonium. But if not, I call it a baritone. So.
That's awesome. All right, man. We're coming to the end of this program. Anything you want to plug, recommend, places people can find you or your content?
Let's see. Well, if I would love to plug just maybe I'll give you some Celtic artists to look for.
Hit me.
And listen, Solas, Solas, Kate Rusby, Rusby, Skydance. That's actually mostly Americans in this group, or at least people who live in America. Skydance, Skydance. You know, Mick McCauley and Winifred Oren, Horan, Winifred Oren. So, and anyway, these are some newer groups that, you know, some of them not so new anymore. They've been around 15, 20 years at least. And of course, the Chieftains.
Yes.
You know, Chieftains have been around for a long time, but the Chieftains are not incredible, not just in their own right, but they are the masters of finding great artists from all around the world and having them perform with them. And they've got entire albums of great singers singing with them, and they're just enchanting. So, yeah.
Truly. All right. Well, thank you, Tom, for being my guest today. And special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And especially thank you, everybody listening at home or wherever you found time to appreciate this. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on Soundcloud, YouTube, and Spotify at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our very first Patreon patron, Sabella Yellow. If you'd like to also be part of the Patreon patron army of the Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves podcast, head over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves podcast. And remember, folks, sticky stuff is gross. I prefer my sugar biz more rigid. But don't get morose. We can still get fat together, just on a different kind of lipid. Ciao.
Yeah.